How's it going, everybody? Brian Albers and Dave Meltzer here, Wrestling Observer Radio. It is January 3, 2017, figure4online.com/wrestlingobserver.com. We got Raw to talk about here tonight. Another incident with Alberto Del Rio, and a lot more. Dave, what's going on?
I don't know. Just getting ready for a busy couple days. We got this SmackDown 205 Live in Tokyo Dome all tomorrow.
That's right.
That's a long day.
That is a very, very long day. Well, let's start with Raw.
Well, actually, wait, yeah, Tokyo Dome's Tuesday night, yeah.
It is tomorrow night. Tomorrow night at 11:30 our time, 2:30 everyone else's time.
Yeah, I should actually be checking the New Japan World for some of the programming that they've done, because there's actually stuff tonight, you know, the fan access show, and I think there's the press conferences tonight, which I haven't watched. I think Okada's doing some big ring entrance with, like, I think there's a movie tie-in or something like that, kind of like what Triple H did and Rey Mysterio did in Mexico. So they're doing that. You know, Tokyo Dome always has that kind of pageantry stuff too. So, you know.
All right, we'll start with the Raw here tonight. What'd you think of the show?
Well, you know, they're starting to build for stuff, so I thought it was pretty good. Especially, I mean, the last segment was good because they got a bunch of different directions with Goldberg. I mean, they did a great job with Braun Strowman and Sami Zayn tonight. You know, with putting Braun Strowman over and to get him ready. And then in the final segment, they really pushed the idea that Bill Goldberg, Roman Reigns, and Strowman were going to have some sort of a meeting. I could see Goldberg and Strowman in the Rumble. I don't think Roman Reigns will be in the Rumble since he's wrestling Kevin Owens on that show, unless he does double, which will mean twice the booze. But I could see a Roman Reigns Goldberg thing. I mean, they definitely teased that. Strowman's clearly being built for a big match, whether it's Roman Reigns, Bill Goldberg, or Undertaker. I mean, it's someone of that caliber. Obviously not Bill Goldberg at WrestleMania, because Bill Goldberg and Brock Lesnar's the WrestleMania match. But it's interesting. You know, obviously Undertaker's going to be back next week. As I think I mentioned last night, there's been an overhaul of aspects of the WrestleMania card in the last couple of days, but I don't know what's the new card, the new stuff that's transpired. So a lot of the stuff that was going to happen is not going to happen. And they're redoing a lot of the stuff right now. So that's why I'm saying with it appeared to me Strowman was being built for Roman Reigns, but it's possible that could be changing.
Show up with Foley out. He's got a new haircut. He cleaned up his beard. He's lost a ton of weight. Looked like a totally different person and about 20 years younger, except when he was walking. Then he looked about 20 years older because his hip is in very, very bad shape. Said his New Year's resolutions included putting the name of the city on his hand so he didn't forget where he was, which was a comedy line at the beginning of the promo, but by the end of the promo, he's going to have to be writing more stuff on his hand, it looks like.
Yeah, he said he teased going like right here in Jacksonville. He said Jackson, and it was like a mocking, because then he showed his hand and it said Tampa, since they were in Tampa. So he was making fun of himself.
Plug the Shark Cage stipulation. Out comes Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho, and they're very upset about the stipulation. And Kevin is upset that he has to face Roman Reigns again for his title at the pay-per-view. And Jericho is upset that Seth gave him a pedigree on top of a car, and he was rewarded with a match on TV last week, at the pay-per-view, actually. And then he's being forced into the Cage of Jericho, which he is still afraid of, at the pay-per-view.
Wait a minute. Wasn't the Seth Rollins and Chris Jericho match coming off of the pedigree on the car thing supposed to be a favor to Chris Jericho when it was made? It's like, you can get your revenge. It wasn't meant as a favor. It wasn't put together on the show as a favor to Seth Rollins.
I don't even remember the storyline. I just remember Seth's whole storyline was, I got to go through you to get to Owens to get to Triple H.
Yeah, Kevin Owens did Jericho a favor when he was trying to kiss up to him to get revenge, and he went to Stephanie and got Stephanie to agree to put Jericho in so he could get his revenge. As part of the thing is he would get the U.S. title.
Was Jericho happy with this?
I don't know if he was happy with it, but I mean, the idea was it was a favor that Owens got for Jericho. It wasn't that he, something that he was being, that Owens and Jericho thought was something unfairly put on them.
Well, one way or the other, Foley says, let's wipe this slate clean. He says he always hears about the Kevin Owens show, but he's never seen it, so he is going to let Kevin Owens do a show tonight, and his special guest is going to be Goldberg. And so they say that's fine, but they've got questions for Foley, including why he thinks he can abuse his power. This brings out Stephanie, and she says Mick is not abusing his power. He's doing everything he has every right to do, although he should have consulted her about the shark cage. And he says, well, you should have consulted me about the Sami Zayn last man standing match, and she made a dig about him not being at work over Christmas. And so
even though she missed the week before.
That's right. She signed Roman Reigns versus Chris Jericho for the U.S. title tonight, and she says to make sure we have a decisive winner, Roman can lose the title if he gets DQ'd or counted out. And Owens and Jericho wanted Seth to be banned from ringside. And then Foley jumps in, and he's supposed to say if anybody should be banned from ringside, it's Kevin Owens, but instead he says it's Chris Jericho, who is in the match.
Yeah.
And boy, did Stephanie flip out at that point. Went nuts. She said, I'm irate, I'm so mad for the first time in history. SmackDown beat Raw in the ratings, which actually would be the second time. Said it made her sick to her stomach. Signed Owens versus Rollins tonight. The loser is banned from ringside. She flipped out on all of them. And then she told Foley, get your act together.
We have a ratings war to win. I like that they brought it up, because it makes for good competition between, it's something tangible and it's something real. And, I kind of like that.
It is, but you know what?
Well, it's bad because Raw's probably going to win the next 20 weeks in a row.
Well, just the very statement that she made was such a backhanded statement. SmackDown, for the first time ever, beat us. It's like, wow. What a battle this has been. They lost every single solitary week until last week.
But the most recent one they lost.
Well, that's true.
That's still something.
But still.
And she didn't make an excuse and go, well, we went against football and you had John Cena's first match back, or first appearance back. So it wasn't like she could have done that. That would have been a backhanded compliment. It's like if you guys were going against football, we'd have beaten you. That wouldn't have been good. But she didn't, even that's actually the real reason. That's so I mean it was good in the sense, it made it it also, you got to remember, everybody thinks of Raw as the most important show. Whether it's the best show is a different story, but it's always considered in everyone's mind the most important show. And to go in there and say that SmackDown beat them means that SmackDown at least is on its level, and that's the whole thing they're trying to sell. They're not trying
Yeah, but here's my point. I would have written it to have Stephanie say, we're in the middle of a ratings war and SmackDown beat us last week. The very fact of adding, they beat us for the first time ever, they're not on the same footing. They've been beaten every single solitary week except for one.
Yeah, I agree. She didn't need to do that, but
they should bring it up. I mean, that's the whole point of this Raw and SmackDown thing.
Well, the problem is that you can only bring it up when SmackDown wins, because if you bring it up every week that Raw wins, SmackDown will look like it's the secondary show.
Yeah, so don't bring it up every week. If you want to bring it up every now and then, when
this is only like the second time it's been brought up. The funny part is it was brought.
It's only the second time it's happened.
Yeah, the funny part is that it was brought up the last. Stephanie said it's the first time, but it's obviously in July they had on the draft show they won, but in July they brought it up again. So it's like, how could you say it's the first time when the first time they actually brought it up as the first time?
She did that. There was another thing that happened a couple of weeks ago where she said something happened for the first time and it wasn't the first time. So I think she just likes saying for the first time. I don't know.
Or she just doesn't remember, which is really easy when your mind's...
Which is really ironic since she chastised Mick Foley for screwing up a line again.
Well, that was different. I mean, in the sense of that was just forgetting, that's Mick just getting lost, unfortunately.
You know what's really unfortunate about it? I don't know, but I would bet that Mick Foley is now getting self-conscious about this, and it's only going to make it worse.
Well, I would bet that he's getting self-conscious about it and probably beating himself up over it. I don't know if that'll make it worse. I don't think it's going to, make it. I don't think it'll make it any difference. But yeah, if he's spending, yeah, there is something. But look, there's a million things you got to remember, and sometimes you don't remember everything, especially when you're going on live TV. It's the nature of it. So, but yeah, he's going to have to be writing more stuff on his hands, it looks like.
Seth versus Kevin Owens. Not a lot of heat early. It was a match we've seen 100 times, and the stipulation is that the loser can't interfere later. Not exactly a crowd-pleasing stipulation. Did pick up at the end. Kevin went for the power bomb. Seth slipped behind, hits an enziguri, big comeback, tope to the outside. Owen hits Seth with the ring bell, and that is a disqualification. So Kevin Owens was DQ'd and is banned from ringside for Jericho's match tonight.
Why would you get yourself almost intentionally DQ'd in a stipulation like that, especially when your championship?
I think the idea is they've been backhanded screwing with each other for weeks now.
Okay.
That's my guess.
So he was trying to get himself disqualified so he couldn't interfere and the other guy could interfere?
Well, he was just trying to uneven the playing field for his best friend, since they're not really best friends.
As it turned out, Rollins never interfered anyway.
That's right, he wasn't even there.
Yeah. So they might as well have called it a double disqualification.
May as well have. Cesaro and Carl Anderson. It's Sheamus doing commentary. Cesaro had this really cool deadlift delayed suplex early, finally went for the swing, Gallows tried to interfere, and then Sheamus headed down to ringside. The story was, Cesaro told Sheamus, I don't want you down here, I want to do this all by myself. So they trade near falls. Cesaro goes up top, and Gallows jumps up on the apron to interfere. Sheamus yanks Gallows off the apron, but as Gallows falls off, he bumps into the ropes. Cesaro gets crotched.
He pulls the ropes.
And Anderson hits a neck breaker off the top and pins him.
Stun gun. Gun stun. But they can't call it the gun stun since that term's banned.
So I'll use a giant neck breaker off the top rope.
Gun stun.
Anyway, Sheamus tried to help, but ended up costing Cesaro the match in doing so.
If somebody does a diamond cutter and Vince gets all freaked out because, like, maybe Zales or somebody the guy who runs Zales got in a fight with him and just goes, okay, no one's allowed to use the word diamond. We can still use the word diamond.
We can.
Yeah.
Or neck breaker. What's wrong with that? He did a flying neck breaker off the top rope.
For a diamond cutter, we can call it a flying neck breaker? Okay.
I thought it was a neck breaker. Whatever, who cares? Point was, the story of this match, Sheamus screwed up, but he was trying to help.
But they do that constantly. That's like the story of one or two finishes on every show.
That's right. But at least we didn't have 5 schoolboys on one show. Let's count our blessings.
True. That's only at the house shows.
No, that was Raw last week. We had 3.
I know. They actually had one of those on the main event taping tonight before the show. So the people who were there live, they got to see They got to see that finish.
Well, that's good. They pay their money for that schoolboy.
Yeah.
Had a Braun Strowman Sami Zayn video, had a Goldberg versus Brock video, and then we had Sami Strowman Last Man Standing. This was a good idea for a match because Strowman could go 12 minutes or whatever, and 6 of those minutes he's just standing there as they count for Sami as he's down. Sami ran wild.
They actually went 16, and it was the best Strowman match probably of his entire life.
Well, it was the first match, I think, ever where he got a "This is awesome" chant during the match.
Probably. You'll probably remember that one for a while.
They did a bunch of stuff outside the ring. They brawled backstage. They threw boxes.
There was some of that stuff backstage was really creative. When he did the hip toss over the top, I thought that was really cool.
Sami with a high cross off the ramp, putting both of them through a table.
Yeah, that was the big highlight.
And it was weird because he puts the guy through a table with a high cross off the stage, and Braun Strowman gets up at 8 or whatever, and then just kills Sami for the rest of the match. Threw him down the ramp, threw him into the post, gave him a power slam on the outside, gave him a second power slam on the outside, and finally Sami could not get up at 10. And they had Foley come out with all the dudes in the stretchers, and they were going to carry poor Sami away, but Braun tipped over the stretcher and then grabbed Sami and threw him into the barricade. Sami did a hell of a job here. Best Braun Strowman match ever. Braun Strowman got over. Kind of a win all the way around. And Sami was a fighting babyface and not a geek. He did his best. He just couldn't beat the Giant.
Yeah. The idea, this is not Sami Zayn's time. I mean, whether that's good or bad, I mean, that's a different thing. But in their mind, this is not his time, and it is Braun Strowman's time. So when you're going with those parameters, the job is to get Braun Strowman over strong, not to protect Sami Zayn. So, I mean, or, you don't want to do that booking where, okay, we'll put him over, but we'll make the other guy shine as well. So therefore, we don't want to hurt anyone. It's like, no, when you're trying to make a new main eventer, you're going to hurt a guy. That's just the reality. It's his turn to be hurt. Sometime in 6 months or whatever, you can do the reversal. I mean, that's booking. I mean, I hate the booking when you're just half-assing it, because when you're half-assing it, you have that problem that we always talk about is nobody gets over. This was designed to get one guy over and not to protect the other guy. And right now, if this guy is going to be in a main match at WrestleMania and he's not, and he's not that good, that's what you do. So yeah, I thought it was great. It was great for what it was. It was great for Braun Strowman. So yeah, I just thought, wow, they made him out, and I'm sure at the Rumble they're gonna have him like throw a bunch of guys out, and he's big enough to where if as long as you protect him and you don't do something stupid like try to put him in too long of a match. I mean, this is you're right. Like in any other kind of a match with Sami Zayn, going this long would have been a huge mistake. But this was the kind of a match where you could go a long time and you could make it out. It could be a pretty epic type of a thing. And you also protect Braun Strowman's, the fact that Braun Strowman in a long match where he would have to sell a lot would not be very good.
We had New Day meeting with Jack Gallagher, and then they headed to the ring for their New Year's resolutions. They're all entering the Royal Rumble. And then Titus O'Neil comes out. New Day is just lost at this point without the titles. They're doing segments with Titus O'Neil. Now, granted,
well, I mean,
this was way better than a lot of the New Day stuff. So yeah, I will not denigrate this.
Well, the whole thing is it looks like they're wanting to do a tag team feud, like a regular tag team feud. Instead of like the multi-person stuff, it looks like they want to go with Sheamus and Cesaro against Gallows and Anderson. So that kind of leaves New Day out of the picture. So New Day's in the Rumble. So, the only thing that they're trying to do here is they give him interview time, and it's like, well, let's give him a win. And it's like, well, we don't got enough guys to lose. We can always have, Titus lose. So they had Titus lose to Xavier. And
well, I hope they got a plan for next week, because
hopefully Titus will lose again. It wasn't, it was short.
The match was horrible, but the segment was good. Titus comes out. He interrupts Big E doing his normal Big E introduction. Titus did a great job doing Big E, by the way. Danced to the ring, says he wanted to be the newest member of the New Day. He was dancing.
Titus makes those three guys look so short.
Because he's very tall.
He isn't that tall. I mean, he's tall, but he's 6'4", but it's like he makes them look, they made those guys look like they're all like, really, like, Big E's actually, they're all three of them are actually not that tall, but you usually don't notice it because of who their opponents are. But when you get a guy like Titus, who is like, he's 6'4", but you don't really think of him because they don't portray him as a giant. But when you see him around like normal sized guys, it's like, yeah, he's really big.
He comes out here and he wants to be the new member of the New Day, and he danced and he acted all wacky. And in fact, he was acting so wacky, shaking his ass, that the fans began to cheer him, which I don't think was the intended reaction. And then Xavier started making fun of him, and Titus says, "That's rich coming from the weak link." And so Xavier challenged him to a match. If Titus was man enough, Titus punched him, said, "Let's do this, call out a referee." Referee came out. The match was exactly as horrible in the ring as it was entertaining in the skit, and Xavier won with a sunset flip. I wrote that this went 10 times as long as it needed to.
Well, it didn't go very long.
Well, it went 10 times longer than it needed to.
Yeah, crowd was dead. 4-minute match. Not much to it at all.
So it went, should have gone 24 seconds by my calculations.
10 times shorter than 4 minutes? Yeah, that would be...
Look at that. How about that?
Yeah.
So Bayley met with Stephanie backstage, and she says, "I understand that you expunged my win last week because Charlotte's shoulders were up."
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. But why did you make Dana Brooke the referee for this match, this rematch? And Stephanie says, "Well, you see, Bayley, Charlotte has high-powered attorneys." I thought that would have been a skit I would have loved to have seen. Charlotte's attorneys somehow taking a referee's mistake and turning it into a lawsuit where part of the settlement was they got to choose a referee for a rematch. Stephanie tells her, I never wanted you here on Raw. It was all Mick Foley. He saw you as a potential face of the women's division, but I don't see it. Charlotte's larger than life. You're ordinary. And Bayley says, I may not have a famous name, and I didn't grow up in the business like you and Charlotte, but I deserve to be on Raw. I'm Bayley, and that's good enough for me. I won't give up on my dreams. And Steph says, you almost changed my mind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you in a number 1 contenders match tonight, and if you win, you get the shot at the Royal Rumble. And by the way, your opponent is Nia Jax. She was all excited. And Bayley was very sad.
Yeah.
Probably because she saw the match on NXT with Asuka. She was like, I'll never have a good match with this girl.
Well, she's wrestled Nia Jax many times.
So is Asuka.
Yeah, well, there was a Bayley Nia Jax match that wasn't bad at all. This one, the one they had tonight, was not one of them, but they have had decent matches. Yeah. So Bayley, just so everyone knows, when Stephanie keeps browbeating her and saying she's not good enough, is that this is the Daniel Bryan repeat. Just so everyone knows, it's a Daniel Bryan repeat, but with one difference. With Daniel Bryan, obviously, the idea was never for Daniel Bryan to actually be anything but somebody to put other people over and get heat on the fans in that regard. But the breaks changed, and Daniel Bryan ended up winning the championship and being the top guy because of all the things that ended up happening. Obviously it was not the original plan, even though now they try to claim it was, even though very clearly it wasn't. However, with Bayley, it is. The plan is absolutely for Bayley to be winning the championship. So not at the Rumble. In fact, if she wins at the Rumble, I would say it's a huge mistake because the chase is better than the capture. Or the chase, you need a long... the Bayley character needs a long chase, and it's way too soon. If anything, I think they'll probably put the title on her too quick rather than too late. But that is the goal, is for her to be champion.
Cedric and Alicia are backstage, and they run into Noam Dar, and he says, it's a new year. I want to apologize. I want to apologize to you, Cedric. And Cedric says, you need to apologize to Alicia. And so Noam Dar says, and I quote, I apologize, sweet cheeks, and then he runs off like an 8-year-old. It's quite the storyline.
I hope it gets better.
Good luck. Cedric Alexander and Drew Gulak. Quick match. Tony Nese jumped up on the apron. Alicia yanked him off. Cedric distracted. Gulak pinned him using the tights. I could have sworn I saw virtually the exact same match on 205 Live.
Except it was Tony Nese.
Yes, virtually exactly the same. Only difference was her boot didn't come off this time. And Jericho versus Roman Reigns for the U.S. title. Title can change hands via countout or DQ. They had a match. They did their spots, and then Jericho removes the turnbuckle pad. Referee goes to fix it. Jericho grabs U.S. title, does the old Eddie Guerrero trick of throwing the belt to Reigns and taking a bump, trying to get Reigns DQ'd so he can win the title. Ref turns around, sees Roman with the belt, sees Jericho down. Roman is pleading with the referee. The referee knows that this is WWE's meal ticket right now, so he does not disqualify the man.
Well, he didn't see it.
It doesn't matter.
He didn't see it. Yeah, it does. You can't call what you don't see.
Sure you can.
Hey, look.
It's referee's discretion. Did he trust the man or not?
How many times have you seen a guy get green mist blown in his face? And his face is covered in green mist, but it's behind the referee's back. And the referee turns around. This guy's face is with all kinds of green mist. He doesn't disqualify the guy.
Yeah, because the referee's an idiot.
That's
what I think when I see that. When I see a man down and he's surrounded by a broken guitar, the other guy should be disqualified, especially if he's a guitar player.
You're right. They should. You don't want to make the referee that stupid. But in this case, the referee did do the right thing.
Well, he did the right thing, and Jericho blew his chance anyway. He was too excited, and he tried to get a pin with a code breaker, but Roman kicked out. And then Jericho ended up going headfirst into the exposed buckle, and Roman speared him for the pin. So Jericho foiled himself by removing the buckle. Very good story in this match.
Yeah,
not the best wrestling match, but
didn't they do they teased a count-out spot too that was really well done.
That's right. Did a very, very good job in this match. Good story.
Where Roman, because they were doing the way they were doing the match. I think part of it is because I'm presuming Roman's getting the Universal title. And because Roman's beaten Jericho so many times, I was thinking that maybe this would be the time where they would do a really bad finish and Jericho would get the title just to get that U.S. belt off of him. But no dice. Didn't happen. Still got pinned.
Well, there's still time.
Well, especially because Jericho, I think, needs like a credibility win because he's like always in there with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, and he always loses. But he's always there because the idea is that, well, he's entertaining, and him and Kevin Owens are like carrying the whole freaking show. So they always put him in the main matches. But like every now and then, I think that like Jericho needs to get like a win over Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns. Even if he loses most of the other ones, just so it looks like he can, you know what I mean? And I don't know. I mean, maybe he will next week, but it happened again.
Brian Kendrick, TJ Perkins. We had an angry, gruff-looking Neville watching on backstage. No heat. Kendrick went for sliced bread. Perkins reversed into the knee bar. Went like 2 minutes.
Yeah, nothing match.
Nothing match, and Neville was very upset backstage. It is Neville versus Perkins on 205 Live.
Yep.
On Tuesday night.
Yep. And they also added John Cena, AJ Styles contract signing.
That's right. Yep. Plugged the UK Championship Tournament. Plugged Emma coming at some point soon. Yeah.
Do you think she'll make it this year?
I think by the end of 2017 she'll be here. I think.
She didn't make it last year.
No. So it was supposed to be Rusev and Jinder versus Enzo and Cass, but Enzo's still in a wheelchair, can't wrestle tonight. So Cass says, I'll take on both of them by myself.
You know what's weird is, Enzo worked over the weekend, and they said that he was injured in Los Angeles, which is, I guess, who knows? Because they were advertising it as a tag match, and I don't know.
Advertised it as a tag match this morning.
Yeah.
Well, this was a totally pointless match. It went 1 minute. Cass knocked Jinder off the apron, turned around. Rusev kicked him 1, 2, 3. Wow.
Well, it was a handicap match. You can do that, but yeah. Do you ever? Have you seen because they are total divas after Raw, so I actually watched it, and it's just so weird watching Lana without the accent and Rusev being a cowboy from Nashville. It's just too weird.
Sounds awesome.
It isn't awesome at all, actually. It really isn't.
It wasn't awesome when Jim the Anvil Neidhart is teaching Lana how to do the shot put outside his house, and she shot puts it right into the windshield of his car. And the phoniest thing you've ever seen.
I didn't see that part.
Oh, it was amazing.
That would be hilarious, I suppose.
Oh, my God, you should have seen it.
Yeah.
We have Nia versus Bayley.
He's teaching Lana, not Rusev?
Yeah, Lana.
Wouldn't he be? I would think he'd want to teach Rusev to be a shot putter. Lana,
have you seen Lana?
What, she can shot put?
Dave,
I've seen
you're
Lana.
Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and you have the opportunity to hang out with Rusev or Lana in short spandex, you're gonna teach Lana how to do the shot put. Trust me.
Okay, I do get that.
I didn't question him for 1 second when I saw the segment.
Yeah, but the odds, if I was going to coach someone to actually be good at it, I would pick Rusev.
I would too. Nia versus Bayley, #1 contendership. Charlotte doing commentary. Spent half the time on commentary arguing about whether it's okay to have a normal person as head of the women's division. I wanted to shut off my television in fury. Can you imagine if we were previewing a UFC show and Roy Nelson was fighting for the heavyweight title, and in doing predictions we were arguing about whether or not he was too fat or ugly to be the champion?
Well, we could argue if he was too fat or ugly to be marketable as the champion, but the fact is that it would have nothing to do with his ability to win or lose the match.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you. No, I know. I actually hate it when they do stuff like say that someone is, like too bland or not marketable, and therefore they shouldn't be the champion. Because it's kind of like, it's like when you're watching the show.
Takes you out of the show.
Exactly.
Like, why are we having a #1 contenders match? Why'd you put a normal person in there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole thing is like when you're watching the show, you don't want it like, by the way, we choose the winners based on marketability. It doesn't matter how good they can wrestle. And it's not like the winning and the losing of the match is something that's important. It's like if they're pretty enough or if they're, strong enough or, whatever it is, right? If they're marketable enough in our own weird way of marketability, which is not judging fan reaction, but just judging, cosmetically. So yeah, it takes you out. It basically takes you out of the show.
So Nia's beating on her. When Sasha's music hits, she comes out on the ramp. Nia's distracted, and Bayley gives her the belly to Bayley off the middle rope. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I almost thought that it would be better for, except that they're not going to do Charlotte and Nia right now. I just think that, like with Bayley, I think she needs to stumble a whole bunch of times.
Well, she's going to stumble at the Royal Rumble, I'll tell you that much.
She is going to stumble at the Royal Rumble, undoubtedly. So, yeah, I guess it works out fine.
And finally, we had the Kevin Owens show. Owens had a line which I saw coming a mile away, but he pulled it off great. He says, "My guest tonight, it's a great man, a superstar. He redefined the Attitude Era, and all he had to do was stand there and everybody would chant his name. That man is Chris Jericho."
That was really well done.
That was very good. So Jericho put Tampa on the list for cheering Goldberg. They all cheered. Kevin points out how stupid they are. Jericho announces he's in the Rumble. Kevin is upset. "What if you win? We'd have to face each other at Mania." Jericho says, "Yeah, but no matter who would win, we would be the champion, right?" Kevin says, "I don't want to fight my best friend." So finally Goldberg comes out.
Actually, Jericho's point was just tremendous. It's like it's no lose. You go to WrestleMania and you're one of them's going to be the champion, as opposed to 50% chance of losing it.
Well, yeah, if you're Chris Jericho, that made great sense. If you're Kevin Owens, that made horrible sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. Who would you rather lose? Who would you rather lose it to, Chris Jericho or Roman Reigns or whoever they throw in there with him?
I think the storyline is that Kevin thinks that Jericho can beat him. He doesn't want to lose to this man.
But if he thinks Jericho can beat him, he probably thinks Roman Reigns can beat him. So therefore, might as well lose to the guy who is still your friend and you're still half champion.
Well, Goldberg's music hits. He comes out and says that Jericho is first. Jericho threatens to put him on the list. I do have to say, Goldberg got way less of a reaction here than he did the last couple of times. And I think part of that was because at the beginning, he was inserted into a comedy segment.
Yep.
This is not what people want to see from Goldberg.
Exactly. They want him in intensity. But you know what? At the end, when he was in there when they got rid of Jericho and Owens and he was in there with Strowman and Roman Reigns, it was pretty intense.
Yeah. They turned it around there at the end. So Heyman came out, and then Roman came out after Goldberg vowed to throw out either...
Heyman teased Lesnar being there and then said he's not here.
Yeah, Goldberg vowed to throw out Brock and then face either Roman or Kevin Owens, so that brought out Roman. And then Roman said Owens and Jericho are delusional for thinking they're going to win anything at the Rumble. He goes face-to-face with Goldberg. Then everybody took it more seriously. Strowman's music hit. He got up on the apron, got in the ring. Goldberg and Roman are still staring each other down, but then they look at Strowman, they look at each other, and they give Braun Strowman the double spear and lay him out.
That was really well done.
Yep. Then Roman left and Goldberg posed, and that was the end of the show. Pretty damn good Raw.
Yeah, I thought, good. Set up a lot of new directions, not obvious directions in some cases, and we got let's see. So for the Rumble, it looks like we're going to get maybe the Cesaro match. Cesaro and Sheamus against Gallows Anderson. Although that could also be a TV match, but we're going to get Charlotte and Bayley's on, and obviously Roman Reigns and Owens is on, and AJ and Cena's on. Usually they only do like four matches. Maybe they'll do more because they got the added hour.
Owens, Roman, AJ, Cena, Charlotte, Bayley, Royal Rumble.
Yeah, they'll probably add a couple. Miz and Dean Ambrose probably. I would guess.
Let's see, we've got Goldberg, Lesnar, Big E, Kofi, Xavier, Jericho, and Braun Strowman all in the Royal Rumble.
Well, a lot more than that.
That's so far official. I presume we'll have SmackDown names officially tomorrow on the show.
Yeah.
So what the hell's going on with Del Rio? Third altercation in 3 months?
Maybe fourth. Yeah, I don't know, the whole situation. But I guess it was on Friday night he was in Austria, and he was at a party, and him and his brother, Guillermo, were both there. And I guess they beat a guy up and sent him to the hospital, and the police came, and the police arrested him, and they tried to put zip ties on him, but they were too small, so he broke out of those, so they ended up shackling him. Somewhere in the police station, him and his brother started arguing, and then he knocked out his brother. There was blood all over the police station wall, and somehow they both left the country. Guillermo didn't wrestle his match yesterday that was scheduled in Mexico. Alberto was in Tampa today, in the afternoon for Raw. So he's out of Austria. So it sounds pretty bad.
Sure does.
I'll probably hear a lot. So the only stuff I have is like a newspaper article, but we'll probably hear a lot more tomorrow from people who were there and actually know the situation. So we should have more details. Hopefully we have more details tomorrow. But it sounds like he got into two fights. One at a party in a barn, and one with knocking out his brother at the police station. And his brother did go to the hospital, and the other guy did go to the hospital. So it sounds like he's out of control.
Well, thank God Combates America loves violence.
Yeah, he's out of control, but I think we've known he's out of control for quite a while. So we'll probably be getting these things until, I don't know, something happens with the wrong guy at the wrong time and he gets stabbed.
Let's talk about this World of Sport show.
Yeah, I'm probably about 40 minutes into it right now, and it's pretty good. I mean, it's Kenny Williams was pretty impressive, and Sam Bailey was pretty impressive in the ladder match. Jim Ross was very good on the commentary. He's very motivated. The old clips were all right. It did have a game show feel. It felt, what it felt like was a lot like the old WCW tapings when they used to tape at Disney. It didn't feel like the TNA tapings because the crowd was just way hotter than the TNA taping. Grado was over like crazy. And so I think the Grado thing worked as far as, because the crowd was so strong, it kind of worked, at least so far of what I've seen. It's the thing I'm watching is, it's like a fun, easy to watch product, but that doesn't mean it's going to work on television at a network level. Because at a network level, you need to be able to draw like real masses, and that's hard to do, obviously. If it was that easy, everybody'd be doing it. So I don't know. It's like the wrestling was better than I expected. Actually, the show was better than I expected in a lot of ways. It was kind of exactly what I expected, but maybe slightly better. But will this have appeal outside of the wrestling crowd? And it's simple. You got your very, the heels are heels, the baby faces are baby faces. The announcer makes it very clear who is who. It's not like confusing or anything like that. It's very simple. And so I kind of liked it in that way, in the sense that, yeah, it's easy for an average person to watch it, but would an average person want to watch it? It's like that. I don't know. And obviously that's the big question. The big question is can this thing sustain itself? And, you just don't know until you see it. The guys are not name talent, but they're not too bad. They're not bad. And the crowd makes them seem like stars. And in time, they will be stars if they're on every week. Whether they can get, competitive ratings is another thing. But the fact that they're, that whatever it is, either the crowd's super, super hot or they're instructed and they follow orders really well and it makes them come across as super hot for the babyface. The fact is you watch it, it does have that feel where the stars, the crowd makes the guys look like stars, and that is what you need to do. So it did have that going for it. So, it's simple storyline. It's if you read the results or whatever, it's basically what it is. But it wasn't bad at all.
Alrighty, let's do some of the mailbag questions here. Mailbag at WrestlingObserver.com. Matt says, is there any truth to Ole Anderson's claim that he was back wrestling matches only 2 days after being stabbed in the heart by a fan?
I don't remember, what the timeline was. I can't answer that. I don't know. He was slashed down the back. It was a pretty nasty stabbing. I don't know. I mean, he was back relatively quick, but I don't know if it was 2 days or not.
Sean here says, regarding the New Japan pre-fight press conference, as someone that is new to the New Japan scene, this was the first pre-fight press conference / media face-to-face. How long have they been doing them? Do you think WWE could or should adapt from UFC and New Japan's press conferences for their Big Four shows?
Well, WWE does press conferences at WrestleMania, and they do them at other things, but they're weird press conferences in the sense that the press conference isn't about getting over matches. The press conference is getting over how wonderful WWE is. It's a very different dynamic. Because, I mean, when they did one, I remember talking to people there, and it's just like, God, UFC does your press conferences, and they don't even, you guys should be way ahead of them when it comes to hyping fights because you got no rules, and they have to at least be real, and or close enough to real that it's believable. But all you do is like go out there and say, oh, WWE has 862 billion Facebook followers, and we are, like all this stuff that like boxing doesn't do that, and MMA doesn't do that. It's like, it's that almost like that insecure thing. Oh, we're really popular. It's like, instead of like having the guys square off and say, I'm going to win the championship from you and taunt each other and things like that. So they do it. They don't do it effectively. They should do it effectively, but it's that WWE deal, where it's all about the brand. I mean, it's really interesting. It's, for every company, it's all about the brand and brand building and all that. But WWE takes it to the extreme that they forget that the brand is also built on making big stars, and they forget about really making big stars. Which is funny. I did not see the deal with JBL and Heyman and Peter Rosenberg, so it's probably unfair for me to comment much on it. But apparently JBL said something to the effect of that, what UFC does wrong is that, the top guys face each other too often. And I'm just thinking, like, what the hell did he think? Was he thinking when he said that?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Wasn't the topic tonight, is Raw too long at 3 hours?
They did talk about that, apparently, where...
Were we all in agreement that it's too long, or did somebody kill their credibility?
I think they all did. I think their big thing is like, well, nobody's protesting by turning it off, and it's just like, do you...
What are you talking about?
Do you actually, like, look at the frickin' ratings patterns every fucking week and look at the, the fact that the audience is down, like, a huge percentage year to year? It's like, my God, nobody's turning it off in protest. It's like, well, it's not a protest. They're just turning it off. And I mean, the thing is like, the percentage of people who are turning it off from hour 1 to hour 3, not every week, but in a lot of weeks, is pretty frickin' high. So yeah, they are sending the message. Just no one's listening. But I mean, what are they? But seriously, let's go the other direction. What are they gonna say? Yeah, it's
don't bring it up as a topic then.
Okay, that's true. Yeah, you kill your credibility. I know. Because I mean, what are you gonna say? It's too long. We know it's too long. We lose audience in the third hour a lot of weeks. Or during the summer, people will tune in an hour late because they, people, so many people aren't going to commit to 3 hours. And but we're making lots of television revenue from doing that third hour, and even though we're eroding our audience in the long run, we're making money in the short run. Now, is that good? Oh, fuck, it's not good in the long run. But they're not thinking the long run. They're thinking that the money's going to be, they're going to get that big TV money forever. And you know what? It is possible that they will, and in the long run, even with a dwindling audience, they'll make more money because, USA's having such a terrible time making new shows, and USA needs them more. USA needs them more now than they did 5 years ago when the ratings were much higher. So, there is value to them, to USA right now, and maybe they will always get big money and bigger money. I don't know. But I still don't like the idea of fewer viewers. You know what I mean? I don't think that's a good trend. I mean, it's like you can say, well, there's more competition, blah, 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 whatever, And if your numbers are dropping 2-3% every year, you might be able to make that thing. But when you're dropping, 15% or more, sometimes it's 17%, year to year, I don't know, man. If I was running a business that was dropping 17%, I would probably be going nuts. I'm probably not going to be good at running a business that's going down the toilet, but you know what I mean? But it's like they're just making excuses. You know what I mean? It's like, well, we can always make excuses. Well, it was sunny out. It was rainy out. It was windy out. It was, there's, whatever. Kids don't watch TV anymore. I don't know. I don't know why UFC was up so much this year. It makes no sense because no one's watching TV and it's windy and sunny, and kids have other options. And there's movies and video games and everything.
Spreadnear says, I know there were German heels used in wrestling after World War II, but was it ever explicitly stated that any of them had been or were still Nazis? And do you know if there were ever riots or threats or even government inquiries because of these types of characters?
Well, I mean, the Von Brauners wore swastikas on their boots and outfits. I don't think that I don't remember, like, I didn't see the Von Brauners in their heyday when they were really super hot heels in Tennessee and Florida and places like that where they really, were really strong heels. When they came here, it was the end of their run. And, I mean, they never used the term Nazis. It was implied. But they did have swastikas. So it was kind of like, it's strongly implied. But, yeah, I don't remember them actually saying we are Nazis. But they goose-stepped, I mean, it was, they praised homage to the Fuhrer. I mean, they went pretty far. And, yes, there were, I was at many near riots. I can't say I saw what I would call a full-scale riot here for the Von Brauners, but, I mean, if you want to, if you consider, like, walking down the aisle throwing punches at fans who were trying to punch them back and forth with the riot people swinging and everything like that going down the aisle, I saw many minis. That was not unusual. That was a regular occurrence. So, it was definitely dangerous. It was, and kind of scary in a lot of ways. But yeah, but that was, a lot of heels had that kind of heat. But they had more heat than most.
This person here says, if USADA testing were to be implemented in WWE, would we be seeing a lot more violations?
Yeah, for sure. For sure we would.
Or, maybe we wouldn't. Maybe they're all clean right now.
Not buying it.
This person says, why did Anthem not want Billy Corgan involved in any capacity in TNA once they took control of the company? Yet are potentially opening the door for Jeff Jarrett to come back with these talks they've had with him.
Well, I don't know that Jeff's coming back. I don't know that he's not, but it's a lot of bad blood. That's all.
Simon says, I was wondering if Ricky Steamboat was ever considered the best wrestler in America by his peers in the 1980s.
He was on the list for sure. He was one of the names you would mention as like best working baby faces. I don't remember like a great groundswell of people saying Ricky Steamboat is the best, but he was always in the conversation.
This person here also says, I was wondering if Dave knows what Ishii's reputation is like in the locker room, because in my opinion, he has had one of the best runs of matches ever over the last 3 years, plus that I've ever seen from anybody over a similar span of time.
Well, wrestlers think very highly of him because he's an overachiever. He wasn't a guy who stardom was handed to. He was meant to be, just a guy on the card. He was booked to be a guy on the card, and he got himself over by ridiculously hard work. I mean, he's short, doesn't have a good physique, older. He's what, 39, 40 right now. But I mean, he was, when he first started, getting his push, he's 37. I mean, it was like his prime was already kind of over, and he was really there to just be like, he would be a guy that would just have like really good matches, and he started to get over in Tokyo first. I remember when he first got over in Tokyo, when some of the guys started talking to me and go like, you need to watch this guy. At Korakuen Hall, he's really over. And I'd watch him, he would sell, and he would be the guy who would do a job in a tag match, and he would be really over, and the matches would be great. And, Tokyo's kind of like the, what's it called? The place that's ahead of the curve, the bellwether place or whatever you call it. And, because he started getting over in Tokyo, they started giving him more wins. Same thing happened with Honma, too. Where they just gave him more and more chances to have good matches, and he just came through. And now it's like he's still not a guy that'll probably ever be IWGP champion, and but he may get Intercontinental, and he is in the top mix. And he could be, if Kenny Omega wins the title, I know that Kenny Omega wants to defend it against Ishii on one of the major shows this year if he gets the title, and they'll probably have a completely awesome match too. So he's a guy who can at least be a contender for the world title.
This person here says, any update on WWE and their proposed women's tournament?
No, what's funny is I think that the UK thing seems to have taken precedence because I haven't heard anything about it. And God, I think like a couple of weeks ago I was talking to some people about it, and originally it was supposed to start in January. That's why I think that the UK thing may have taken precedence, because I haven't heard anything about it. But yeah, the women were told originally for January, and then I know some women were asking about, hey, should we, there were women who wanted to go to Japan in January, and it's like, should we keep our schedule, open for the tournament, rather and not go to Japan right now? And it was like, no, go to Japan. So I'm guessing that it's not happening right away. I mean, it maybe it'll happen in March. I don't know, but I think that they don't want to do. And I don't see any reason to do two tournaments at the same time anyway. You can do it, but I wouldn't do it.
This person wants to know, why was Bam Bam Bigelow never a bigger star? He seemed to have all of the necessary qualities, but never rose above the lower mid-card.
He did real well in a lot of places. He was pretty strong in ECW. He was pretty strong in WWE, very, very strong in Japan. He did pretty well. When he got a little older and he had more injuries, not quite as strong. But he was talented. He was definitely really agile for a guy his size. He did rub people the wrong way. I don't know if it was that he got stardom so quick in Japan. Because, in Japan, for whatever reason, they loved him in Japan. They put him in there. Him and Inoki did like a good house, not a great house, but a good house very early on. And I think he beat Fujinami and Maeda. Maeda was pissed at him. I actually know that story because Bigelow came back from Japan after the Maeda match where he beat Maeda. And he said, like, the guy was spitting at him in the match, and he wasn't roughing him up. He was just being like a dick, while losing. He just goes, God, what's the story here? And so I told him the whole story of Maeda and his background and everything, and the fact that Maeda had never lost to any foreigners for years until the Bigelow match. And then I explained the whole thing. He goes, oh, I get it now. So, like, they hadn't explained anything to him. He just thought, it's still, and again, it's still not defending the fact that he was spitting at him in a match because he had to do a job for him. But at least at that point, Bigelow kind of understood, okay, he's got this rep and he doesn't really think it's good to do jobs. And all of a sudden they go, you've got to do a job for this guy. And he was just really, negative about it. So, but yeah, no, the fact that they put him over Maeda and Fujinami in New Japan, that was a pretty, he got a major push there, and he was, I think him and Inoki did like a $700,000 gate at a time when that was like an incredible number. And, in WWF, the first run, definitely the first run, there were people who didn't like his attitude. I think they had Sika rough him up once. I think they had Andre rough him up once. And later, which would be the mid-90s, when he did the Lawrence Taylor thing, he was promised the turn and a top position. He was, if he did, the idea was you do the job for Lawrence Taylor, and you're going to, your face is going to be everywhere. Everyone's going to be talking about you, and we're going to turn your baby face, and you're going to be like, the kick-ass, you're going to be the kick-ass, baby face. So they did the thing. He did put over Lawrence Taylor, and he turned baby face, and then he started doing jobs. And, it was the whole thing of the Michaels clique, just buried him. And he knew it. And, that's kind of what happened on that run.
All right, everybody, on that note, we're going to wrap it up. We've got all sorts of things up on the front page right now. We got shows. We got a back issue of The Observer. There is a new Observer coming